Last weekend, I went on a trip to the North Shore of Lake Superior in Minnesota. I had a wonderful time up there and wanted to share my experience. I hope you can join me in knitting or whatever your project may be, and I can tell you all about it. Today, I am working on a blanket that I think I started about 2 years ago, and I haven't really gotten very far with it. I'll show you. This is about as far as I've knitted it. It is quite wide though, so I will give myself a little bit of grace with that, but it's not one that I often pick up. I automatically put into my head that this is a long-term project, and so now that I know that, I just don't reach for it, because I always reach for garments that I just want to wear immediately. But it just felt right working on this project today, and it's pretty fun because it's using up all of my scrap yarns, so I feel like there's just a bunch of memories in this from when I worked on the projects that used the yarn, and it's a very randomized order in which I am knitting the colors. It's the Incredible Blanket by Purl Soho, which is free on their website. Of course, I'll link it down below. And the way they have you organize what colors to use is separate your scrap or yarn into warm tones and then cool tones, and then you kind of close your eyes and alternate between warm and cool, and that helps you randomize the colors while making sure there's still a good balance. I have my scrap yarn separated into these 2 project bags that are pretty beautiful. These are from the Knitting Swan, and of course I'll link her shop down below too. It's these beautiful roses, and yeah, it's just been storing all of the scrap yarn that I have for this particular project. The next row on the blanket will be a warm toned row, so I'm going to go ahead and not look and pull out a color to knit with next. So I'm going to be using this beautiful pink, which I think is Jameson, that I used in the beret that I made, the S'more beret by Gudrun Johnston. I've been really loving working on this. Generally, I leave this next to my bed, and this is what I'll knit on if I'm doing a little bit of knitting before bed. I just haven't been knitting a lot in bed lately. I knit downstairs in our living room up until I'm like really tired. Either I fall asleep on the couch and get up and go to bed, or I just go straight to bed. So I don't get around to actually knitting in bed as much as I would like, but it would be kind of a nice habit to form. Last summer, my next door neighbor, Sarah, who's become my friend, and she also is a knitter. She's recently just gotten back into knitting a bit more, so we've been getting together and just working on our projects. She invited me up to a girls trip that she takes every year. I think for like the past 15 years she's gone on this girls trip, and they all kind of bring friends along certain years, really trying to fill up the space in this beautiful home that is rented right on the shore of Lake Superior. Like, you look out the window and you're looking right at the lake, which is really cool if you haven't been there. The Great Lakes, they definitely have an ocean feel to it because you can't see the shoreline across from it. And it's just a very magical place to be. So of course I said, yes, I'll come. And knowing that a lot of the women that go up there are also knitters, I knew that I would fit right in. And that definitely was the case. The plan was also to do a lot of outdoor activities because they tend to get quite a bit more snow up there than we do down here, kind of in the Twin Cities. And I personally haven't been able to ski for the last 2 years just for lack of snow. And so that was the main reason that I was really excited to go up there, is to be able to get some cross-country skiing in. It worked out that Sarah was able to drive her and I up, and I got to be passenger princess, so I was knitting the whole time. I was on the way up working on the Weekend Hat by Hiromi Nagasawa, and yeah, I ended up completing it while I was up there, but I only got the ribbing done on the drive up. And we met a few of the women at new Scenic Cafe, which is on the Scenic Highway 61 just north of Duluth. If you haven't been there and you're in the area, I really recommend it. Not only is the food amazing, they use a lot of like seasonal ingredients, and I think a lot of them are sourced locally, but the whole vibe of the place is really cool. It definitely has like Scandinavian feel there. And I think my favorite part of the whole restaurant is that they have birch trees inside. They aren't alive, but they were probably fallen birch trees that they kind of like have tacked up on the side, and they all kind of angle out. And I'm not gonna lie, I definitely wanted to do the same thing in my house. Actually, right behind where I'm sitting, I wanted to put one up and have a kind of angle over this chair that I'm sitting in, but I haven't really gotten around to that quite yet. I was able to meet most of the women that we would be staying at over lunch, and we had some wine and appetizers, and the food was amazing. I had Swedish meatballs and like a rutabaga mash. It was like mashed potatoes, but rutabaga instead of potatoes. And oh my gosh, was that incredible. And naturally, these meatballs put IKEA meatballs to shame, but that's saying a lot because I really do like IKEA meatballs as well. I'm getting so hungry just talking about it. I might have to go get a snack really quick. After lunch, we made our way up to the house, and it was up in Grand Marais. I don't know if I said that earlier. It was just, the very first thing I noticed as I drove up was, or actually when I got out of the car, was the sound of the waves. They were just crashing right on the shoreline where we parked, and it just overtook me. And then, of course, you walk into this big open dining room and kitchen. There were 2 seating areas. We stayed on the main seating area that had like the A-frame portion of the house looking straight out at the water. And there were plenty of bedrooms. I think the house fits 14 people, but there were only 8 of us, so we had a lot of sleeping options available. I was fortunate enough to get a room to myself, which had a window looking out at the lake, and it was so peaceful. After we kind of figured out where we were going to sleep, we were invited to a full moon ceremony. Sarah has some friends that live up there that are a part of a women's circle, and it happened to be a full moon that night. And so we went over to somebody's house, and it was really nice and chill. We ended up just pulling some like moon cards and getting to know some of the other women. There were a lot of snacks. The house was really cozy, and yeah. We also sang some songs. I've never really sang much in a group setting, and I thought that was really nice. It was a little hard for me to pick up what the lyrics were to the songs, but I kind of hummed along if I didn't know anything. Did that, and then came back to the cabin and just hung out with the ladies there, ate some dinner, and went to bed. The next day was our first full day, and immediately we wanted to make sure that we were going to be getting some skiing in. So myself and 3 others went up to Pincushion, which is a trail system that's just up the Gunflint Trail in Grand Marais. And we were able to ski quite a bit. We kind of stayed on the green trails because most of us hadn't skied much since there wasn't a lot of snow. So we kind of wanted to listen to our bodies and not overdo it, especially because we had planned more winter activities later through the weekend. And oh, it felt so good to be out on the skis. The cold air just felt amazing on my skin, and it was a sunny day too, so I felt like I just got so much vitamin D while I was out there. I feel like going out in the bitter cold air can really just do so much for mental clarity. I remember the night before I had misplaced my wallet and I could not think of where the life of me I put it. And once I was outside, I could think a little bit more clear, and it helped me remember where my wallet was. Once we were done skiing, two of the ladies went on to ski some more, but I went back. I wanted to take a shower, and it was really nice. While I was in the shower, a bunch of people went to downtown Grand Marais area, and I got some time to just knit alone in the living room and just have some alone quiet time. Mainly this whole weekend, my first goal was to finish the Aureliano sweater by Claudia Quintanilla. This is a sweater that I had been working on since last September, and all I had was a sleeve and a half left, but it was like lace weight yarn that I was knitting with, so it was taking a while, but I really was determined to finish that by the end of the weekend, and spoiler, I did. So yeah, I just spent some time knitting on that, and then once everyone kind of got home from all of their adventures, we all gathered together and ate dinner. That was a really well thought out plan. So basically how it worked with meals is everyone would pair up, and two people would be in charge of breakfast and two people would be in charge of dinner, and then we all kind of were on our own for lunch. And yeah, it was really nice. I actually had made the breakfast beforehand. That day I made a Gruyère and spinach egg casserole, and it's so good. I'll actually link that recipe down below as well. I will warn you though, there's a paywall in front of it because it's a New York Times recipe, but if anyone subscribes to that, then they'll be able to make that recipe, and I really recommend it, especially if you're needing to feed a lot of people breakfast food at once. I was able to prepare it at home the night before we went up, and I just froze it and then popped it in the oven, and it was good to go, and it was so delicious. But yeah, so someone was in charge of dinner that night. It was a really great time for all of us to kind of come back together and talk about what we did that day. We all just sat around this huge dining room table, and the women that I went with work in a lot of labor and delivery, so there were midwives and nurses and doulas, and so it was just like really fascinating hearing about all of their stories. I myself, I've never given birth to a child, and so I don't have that experience, obviously, and so it was very interesting for me to hear everyone kind of talk about different stories throughout the whole weekend. I found it really fascinating. I actually was telling one of them how a lot of times when I'm knitting or sewing or weaving, I'll listen to a podcast or like an audiobook, and it felt like I was just listening to a podcast all weekend, just listening to everybody talk, and it was so enjoyable. So the next morning, we decided to hike up a river a frozen river. It was more like a creek. It wasn't like a rushing big river or anything like that, going up through one of the canyons. This is a hike that they've done in the past, and I think it was recommended by someone local. And oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. Like I said, it was a completely frozen river, but there were pockets where the water was open. It wasn't dangerous. Like if we fell through the water, it would be like maybe a foot down, but thankfully none of us stepped through the ice at all. But hearing the water rush underneath the ice was also a very cool experience. There was a part where some of us had to separate though, because we had to climb up a really icy hill. So only a few of us went up, but that's what kind of led us up to the end of this creek where there's like frozen waterfall. And oh my gosh, there's something that happens inside of me the moment I'm just in nature, and it just kind of takes over and makes me feel like a kid again. And I really enjoy that feeling a lot. So that was very beautiful. And then we hiked back down, and that day I really wanted to go into town of Grand Marais. There are a ton of beautiful shops. It's a very artistic town if you haven't been there before. And a lot of the shops stay open year-round, which is great because they do still get quite a bit of tourists in the winter to experience like the winter on Lake Superior. I popped into a couple of shops. I didn't really buy much. I did buy a journal for myself because I kind of want to start journaling. Of course, I needed a cute new notebook to journal in, so I got that at one of my favorite gift shops that are up there. It's called Upstate. They have a really cool Instagram if you want to check it out, and I think you can order stuff online. But my favorite part of that shop is just how colorful it is. They have really bright, colorful goods, and they all kind of coordinate together, and I feel like I just get this big dopamine hit when I walk into the shop. They for sure curate it very well. So I had to get in there, and then we really wanted to check out the North House Folk School. So it's this huge, it's like a whole campus pretty much right on the water in downtown Grand Marais, and they have recently done a lot of remodeling, and so I haven't been there at all since they remodeled, and I really wanted to check out their new kind of gift shop. And wow, do they have so many beautiful things in that shop, especially the book wall. Once I saw that wall, I'm like, I need to stay away because I know myself. I know I love to buy books. I love reference books, but I don't really like use them a ton. I just like to flip through them and then they kind of fall to the side and then I buy more books. So I wasn't allowed to buy any books, but it was very impressive the amount of crafty books that they have. And the class offerings at the school is amazing. But yeah, so they had kind of like a little pop-up event in one of the other buildings where there were a few different booths. People were spinning, felting, there was yarn for sale. Little Fern Fiber Shop in Grand Marais had a little pop-up booth there, and they had some custom colorways that were really pretty. And yeah, it was really cool to just kind of see what was going on in there. And then I also went into a couple of like art galleries that they have in town too, because they have a lot of artists in Grand Marais, and so they have their stuff on display at these art galleries. So the next day, which was our final full day up there, Sarah really wanted to go ice skating, and there was this particular spot that she wanted to go to. It was at the Gunflint Trail Lodge, which I think is like the beginning of the Boundary Waters. I could be wrong, but it was an hour drive out there, and what a treat it was. We just drove on the Gunflint Trail the entire way to get there, And that is a really cool road, and it was especially beautiful in the winter, just magical. And then we get to this kind of resort type place, and they had ice skates that you could rent, but they weren't like hockey skates or figure skates. They were Nordic skates, which is really interesting. And basically it's like ski boots. I think you use actual ski boots for it, and then you clip into these skates as you would with skis. And they're a little bit longer than hockey skates and figure skates, and I really liked that because I felt more secure. I hadn't gone skating since high school, so I think about 15 years at this point was the last time I went ice skating. So I definitely felt like a baby doe just learning how to walk for the first time. They groomed like 6 miles of ice skating trail out onto the big lake, and that was just an amazing experience. So the ice was like natural from the lake, and you could hear the ice cracking. It makes a really thwomp sound, and it's kind of like nothing you've ever heard before if you haven't experienced hearing that. And I felt kind of secure because there were snowbanks up on the sides, so if I knew I was going to fall, I just tried falling into the snowbank, so it was a lot more of a cushiony fall than straight on the ice. I did end up falling 3 times, but not until the very end, and I felt like I was just like getting tired at that point, and my body was just falling a lot more. And then, so yeah, that was a really cool, fun time. It was really cold, but I was wearing my woolens, which kept me nice and warm inside. After the ice skate, we went into the lodge. We sat there and knit for a bit, and it was just a really nice experience and totally worth the hour drive out there and back. It really didn't even feel that long because we were just so amazed by it, the scenery around us the whole time. I would absolutely do that again, and now I kind of want to find some ice skates that would adapt to my cross-country ski boots that I have. So like, we may not always have snow on the ground, but it's almost always a guarantee that it's going to be freezing. For example, this week at home, it's been like negative 15 degrees, not including the wind chill. And so there'll always be ice. And so it'd be fun to be able to have a pair of skates that I can take out and just skate around if I don't get to go skiing. So that's something I'm going to look into getting. But yeah, so for the final night for dinner, we just all kind of ate our leftovers that we had throughout the week and just kind of hung out and chatted with everybody. It was a really nice time. Went to bed, woke up, and we all had to kind of leave by 10. We packed up, cleaned up the house, and kind of all split off and went on our way back home. Sarah and I made a couple of stops to get coffee and then stopped into a gift shop, and I was actually able to find my mom a birthday present there, which made me really happy. I got her this beautiful cutting board that has like a cheese slicer on it as well, that you use just like a wire to cut the cheese. And then I ended up buying some local cheese for her as well, so I'm excited to give that to her. And then in Duluth, we stopped to get lunch at like one of my favorite places. It's called Northern Waters Smokehouse. They specialize in smoking fish, and they make like the best sandwiches out of it. It's incredible. They have a deli and a restaurant side. They started out as a really small operation, and it's just gained so much popularity that they were able to move locations in the same building and open up a very large space. And it was fun because there was live music going on, and it was kind of folky band. They sounded really nice. I think they were just doing covers, but it was a good time. And Sarah and I both split 2 sandwiches so we could try each other's and kind of get more out of it. And that's actually where I bought the cheese for my mom, and I got myself some cheese and some like beef sticks too. And oh, love Northern Waters. Again, if you're in Duluth, in the area, I really highly recommend. There's no way I can pass through Duluth each way and not stop at least once to get their food. It was just a really nice time. I definitely needed this vacation. I feel like for most people, especially here in the US, we've had a very stressful time since last year leading up to now. And it was just really great to be surrounded by amazing women, all different ages, and we didn't really talk about politics or anything. We all really needed a break from that, and I feel like very rejuvenated, and I've officially been invited to go back next year, and I said yes immediately, so I'm very excited. Now I have something to look forward to a whole year from now. I would love to know if you've been to the Grand Marais area and what you've experienced from it, and also if you've taken any classes at North House Folk School, because that is something that I really want to do. I think I need to run off and make a little snack or even dinner, because after all of this talk of the wonderful food we ate all weekend, I am pretty starving. I would love to know if you like this style of format. I don't think I've ever actually done a knit and chat before, but it's something that I really like when other channels do, because I feel like I'm just like hanging out with that person and we're in a little knitting circle and just chatting about life. If you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing and you won't miss out on any future content. And if you've made it this far, please give this video a thumbs up. That really helps my channel out quite a bit. But in the meantime, I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and we will chat next time. Bye.